morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. As you might recall, during Comic-Con, Fox didn't officially cover any of their comic book movies. And the reason I qualify that with the word officially is because, as you might also remember, there was a very big leak during Comic-Con about The Thing. An excellent shot went onto the internet of his entire head and shoulders, and I covered it in my Comic-Con 2014 coverage. And I said he looked very Leica. And Leica, of course, is the stop-motion studio behind the cult hits Coraline, Paranorman, and the upcoming The Boggs Trolls. But even though he was very stylized, to everyone's relief, at least comic book fans' relief, at least he looked like The Thing. But I don't know if we can say the same thing for Dr. Doom, as photos have also surfaced about this character, which a number of you called to my attention yesterday. Now, with two leaks like this, from seemingly the same kind of setup, and also such high-quality leaks, like really good full-body shots, just almost like, I have to say, almost like they're staged. And one has to wonder if this isn't Fox's doing, if this isn't some kind of grassroots promotional campaign where they're like, hey, instead of us officially talking about the Fantastic Four, why don't we pretend that people are so excited about this movie that they're sneaking onto our set, and they're so excited and they're so sneaky because they're so excited that we don't even see them taking these photos, clearly like standing in the middle of the room surrounded by crew, and then they post them on the internet. Darn it, we wish we could stop them, but they're just too excited. I think that's the narrative Fox is trying to go with, and we'll see if it takes. I think it would take a lot better if these costumes looked better. Now, the other thing I thought when I saw this, besides the obvious nature of the leak, was poor Toby Kebbell. Now, of course, he just starred this summer in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and he won over a lot of fans, myself included. He was very good as Koba. And here, I have to say, though, he's 2 for 2. And do you remember the old saying they used to say? It was like an old Hollywood insult, or just an insult in general. They'd say, you have a face for radio. You know, of course, meaning no one needs to see your face. We should just listen to your voice. Save everybody the horror, etc., etc. Lame insult. But I have to say, it came to mind when I saw this, and I wonder if Toby Kebbell can't be help but think that people are saying, you have a face for motion capture. And Andy Serkis is like, hey, don't worry, buddy. You can make a lot of money and forge a really strong career in motion capture. Look at me. I'm a director now. And so Toby Kebbell, I guess, should feel very nice, maybe being the prince of motion capture to Andy Serkis' king. He's certainly quite good at it, as he was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Koba was just as well realized as Caesar. But here again, he has the same situation where he's playing this big role, and they're hiding him again beneath quite a bit of makeup, entire body makeup. And that's the third point. Doesn't he look a little bit like The Thing's mini-me? And you take that how you will. I just thought that was a horrible double entendre. But anyway, if he looks so much like The Thing, and they both suffer from this entire whole full-body transformation, wouldn't they be friends? Wouldn't they form some kind of I have crust all over my body support group? But no, apparently they're going to fight. Now, the other thing that bothers me is that you might recall they've made a big deal about the Fantastic Four being real. You know, Josh Trank's like, hey, I'm the Chronicle guy. That's all I know. I'm going to apply that to the Fantastic Four. And Michael B. Jordan was out there saying, we're just a bunch of scared kids. We get these superpowers. It brings us together as a family because we have to overcome our powers, which we see as disabilities, and we just want a normal life. And so we were all like, all us fans were like, okay, all right, we liked Chronicle, so let's go in that route. But this isn't realistic. Who would realistically make this high-fashion choice of draping a cape around their shoulders? It is so bizarre. First of all, remember from The Incredibles, the whole thing about capes? That's ruined capes for me. From then on out, I just don't see it as a viable fashion choice for superheroes or supervillains. And especially when it's loosely put on like this. It's not like it's going to snap off if you pull on it. It's going to choke him. The other thing is that I think it would fall off when he was fighting. I mean, what's holding it up there besides good fashion and good taste? It makes no sense. And also, he's like, you know what? I'm totally covered in this disgusting stuff. I'm basically naked, but I think I need like a hood. And it doesn't even cover him up really. As you can see, it's behind his shoulders. So it's totally just there as a fashion choice, as I said. And that whole thing in the back, that really cool, like, billowy effect, that's impossible to achieve pretty much in real life, unless it was a much thicker fabric. But we can see from the back of the cape that it's not. So a really weird, distracting, unrealistic choice. Now, a lot of people have been making jokes about this already, and a really good one that was out there that I saw was that it looks like he gave Johnny Storm a hug. And speaking of Johnny Storm, I think this is him in our next photo. You can see this kind of light figure there, and I'm wondering if he's just partially lit up or if that's just a guideline for maybe the lighting effects, to cast light on Doctor Doom when they're having this fight. But that's probably actually, now that I see it, what I would think. I don't, when Michael B. Jordan says disability, I no longer know what to expect. And after seeing these photos, I definitely don't know what to expect. But it makes me wonder if maybe Johnny Storm doesn't fully fire up. But by seeing this and getting a closer look at it, it does look like maybe this is just to create the lighting effects necessary, so save them a little work in post, I guess. So here also then you see Doom in the same photo being unceremoniously hoisted into the air, looking even more mole man in my opinion. And also you can see here that there are some tatters in his cape. Again, so not the leader of Latveria. Latveria is a pretty advanced nation. I mean, this is a guy who's eventually going to build Doom bots, and I'm not seeing that here. He also, in this photo, looks like he has gloves and boots on. So I don't understand quite what's going on in terms of whether or not this is a costume or if it's a disfigurement, or maybe just, this is how it looks in this lighting, but when we actually see it with finished special effects, it'll be the full body effect. And also, I don't know why he's hoisted. Can this Doom fly? Or maybe he's being hurled across the room? I don't know. So very weird choices. But I really do trust Toby Kebbell after his performance in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so I'm giving him a little bit of leeway. And I do trust Josh Trank to some degree after Chronicle, but we'll see what we get here. Very, very weird. And I do wonder, there have been so many bad rumors about this behind the scenes, about Fox, maybe wanting to fire Josh Trank, not being able to find anybody else who would take over at that late a date. A lot of you said that rumor wasn't true, but Bleeding Cool, who broke that story, stood by it, and that was the reasoning they gave, that Fox tried to get somebody else, reached out to a few directors, but they were like, are you crazy? You're just days from production. I'm not taking this over. And so they were like, okay, we're stuck with Josh Trank. Let's not try to let anybody know, or at least admit, that we tried to replace him in the last minute. So we'll see. But I'm very curious to what you think of these photos and the different points that I brought up. Now, for the second story, get ready to meet a kick-ass TV crew. Yes, the posters have come out for Mockingjay, a whole new set, and I think the most interesting thing is that, again, no Katniss poster. We have yet to get a Katniss poster for Mockingjay. I don't know what the heck's going on. Maybe this is so awkward and obvious at this point that it maybe makes me think there's some kind of like behind-the-scenes negotiation problem with Jennifer Lawrence and her agents. I don't know. It's a really crazy situation. I know I can't tell you how I know, but I do know that Jennifer Lawrence is a little bit picky about the certain interviews and photo ops that she does, more so than most other actors. So maybe she's holding out for some reason and being like, no photos for me or no poster for me. Who knows what the game plan is? I originally thought, and maybe this is still the case, that Lionsgate is still trying to, build this out beyond Katniss, so that you become attached to these other characters, so that they can have a franchise beyond this 4-movie run. Yes, it's 4 movies. This 4-movie run, because they want to have the theme park, obviously, and I would suspect spin-off films. But it's at this point, where's Katniss, right? I mean, she was hardly even in the trailer as well. And also, Peeta, you don't see here, but he's been shown a lot because, this is really, they're showing sides. And we've seen Peeta in those Capitol propagandas. So anyway, we have a lot of new characters introduced here. We do have a Gale poster, which I'll get to in a moment, but I want to start with my favorite one, and this is Cressida. Please forgive me if any of the pronunciation is incorrect, but Cressida. Now, I think it's funny that they're all showed with weapons when they are actually a television crew that has to be armed for their own safety, because they're not embedded anywhere. They're both their own battalion and television unit. So I really wish that some of these photos played up the PR angle here, because I think that's going to be a really interesting part of this movie, and it's been a big part of the advertising campaign so far. And a lot of us are waiting to see a propo from, District 13. So when we know they're making them, because these are the people who make them. But Cressida, I think she looks really great. I'm a big fan of this actress, not only from Game of Thrones, but some of the other work that she's done. She's very talented. She's really working her way up the Hollywood food chain, and this is a big break for her. Of course, in the I almost said comics. I'm always used to talking about comic adaptations here. In the books, her head is fully shaved, but they came up with this neat idea of having a half-shaved head, and then these tattoos still obviously visible. I think it's a good look. I like it. and I think it works really well with the character. And, you know, it's reminiscent of some of the capital choices, and of course these are all ex-capital people, I imagine. You know, Effie's coming over to this side as well, so those high fashion choices would still exist. I think it's very good and I like it a lot. Next up, obviously, Gale. It's nice to see him get a poster again. He's always left out of these things because they're always focusing on the tributes. But I think he has a bow and arrow. Not the most masculine of weapons, but hey, everybody loves a good bow and arrow. But this isn't a bow and arrow, so I wonder, for all of you who are fans of a bow and arrow, archers are really big with fans. I'm curious if the you know, the arrow gun, I forget the exact term, if that is exciting to you as well, or do you feel it's missing the you know, the skill level of the actual bow and arrow? And also maybe he's trying to like bond with Katniss. He's like, hey Katniss, I have some arrows. You want to borrow some of my arrows? Why do you keep talking to Peeta all the time? He's just, okay, I don't want to give away any spoilers. Okay, next also, there's some diversity coming into play here. I mean, we had Jeffrey Wright as BT in the last film, but a big critique of the Hunger Games and a really hot topic has been some of the lack of diversity. Also, apparently a lot of readers, as you might remember, showed their prejudice. Even though characters were described as having brown skin or darker skin in the book, they were like, I just thought they were tan. But then when they had the actual characters cast with black actors, people were like, remember that horrible comment where someone said, is it bad that I don't feel so horrible about Rue's death because she's black? And everyone was like, yes, it's absolutely horrible, and you really need to do some retrospective thinking about that because you might be a horrible person. So it was a really big problem, and so as you can see, they had Cinna, you know, with Lenny Kravitz, but again, they're adding even more here, and I think that's great. And for instance, Boggs is a character who is white in the book, so that's actually a change for ethnicity to actually actively add more diversity to the film. So you have Boggs, and then you also have Messalla. And fun fact, that's Diana Ross's kid. A lot of people are very happy to see the piercings on the character, and again, this is bringing more diversity to a franchise that really does need it. All right, and then we have two more people, and this is two unknown actors. Very interesting. Also very interesting to see, I believe the name is Commander Lynn, and this is a character who was played by two different actresses in both of the Mockingjay films, so that's why you might not see her here. Although I don't think she's on this TV crew either. I think she works with Coin, so that might be why she's not included. But this is Pollux and Castor, and again, I believe they are on the television crew. And as I said, you know, we're seeing only weapons here, and I think that in the Hunger Games franchise, TV cameras are weapons because it's a war fought with an ad campaign, and so I wish that was played up a little bit more in these posters. But maybe they feel it's a little too intellectual and heavy for something that's supposed to be a fun blockbuster, and they're like, we'll just get them when they get in the theater. But right now, let's show them guns. All right, so I'm curious to what you guys think of the posters, and also, do you want a Katniss poster, or are you okay with it? Is Lionsgate actually beginning to succeed in making you think of the Hunger Games even beyond Katniss? And whose poster do you like the best? And also, what do you think of them bringing diversity into the picture? All right, so the third story, this is an interesting one. I'm not going to be able to cover it because I'm traveling. I'll try to cover it when I get back. But a movie hitting theaters this weekend, and pretty decent wide release. And again, forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly, but it's Cantinflas, the really famous Mexican comedian, kind of like the Mexican Charlie Chaplin. I did review the trailer. It looks like a really good movie, and it's another Spanish language film, but after Instructions Not Included did so well from Eugenio Derbez last year, I think that Cantinflas, and based on the reaction to the trailer, really clearly a very beloved persona by audiences still even today, I can maybe see this film being another repeat success for the Spanish language market here in the United States. But I wanted to bring it up because I'm curious who here is planning to go see Cantinflas this weekend. I also kind of wanted to remind you to go if you weren't aware that it was being released. And then I also wanted to find out, you know, we're talking so much about foreign film here. I'm trying to expand the horizons here on Beyond the Trailer. So I wanted to know, what foreign films are you interested in? Now, of course, I understand you're not all from the United States, obviously. So when you put your answers down below, say first what country you're from, so we can get kind of an idea what films are popular where, and also what you would like to see, because while these films aren't particularly popular here in the United States, I think that's beginning to change, and I, as a moviegoer, am excited about that. So you've got your Spanish language films, you have your Asian films, you know, but mostly from, but no, South Korea is becoming a really big contender too in the film market. So you have Japan, China, and South Korea contributing films. Are you interested in those movies? And also, as they move beyond just martial arts films, are you interested in their dramas and comedies? Bollywood. Just yesterday we talked about Happy New Year. Are you interested in films from India? And also even Russia. Stalingrad had a limited release here in the United States. I watched it on demand, and it was a pretty good movie. A little slow, but the problems that I had with it, I would have with any film. It was certainly on an equal level with the stuff coming out of Hollywood. And also, somebody the other day said, Grace, why aren't you covering these German movies? And I promise I will try very hard. I think it's Peter Gatt. Peter, I will try very hard to get to those trailers when I get back. But I think that French and German and European cinema has always kind of had a foot in the door a little bit, at least with the award circuit here in the United States. So it doesn't seem as new a thing. But I do think that that should be included. I mean, we want to be all-inclusive here. So those European films as well. And then also, of course, there's the UK, but I think that Hollywood and the UK film industry are so closely linked to the point where I think the UK film industry is struggling to redefine its own identity. That's why you're seeing Daniel Radcliffe work so hard to, star in these films from the UK and really, get that voice back instead of just being kind of like, a Hollywood colony. I think that's maybe we're seeing something work on that as well. So right below, again, what country you're from and what films you're interested in seeing from which other countries and why. And if you already have them there, if you're waiting and you're hoping you're going to get them. And also, a third thing, which country do you have, if you have any experience with films from other countries, which ones do you find are really good? Which ones do you recommend? All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Let's get on to the viewer question, which also happens to cover another big story that's been out this week. This is from Elias Zeliaran Albornoz. I'm so sorry, Elias. My pronunciation is horrible. All right, Elias Zeliaran Albornoz. And Elias, I think that's what's wrong with me? All right, Elias. Hi, Grace. I am a huge fan from Argentina. Hello, Argentina. And I hope you could answer my question. The Hollywood Reporter has announced that Corey Goodman was hired to write the reboot for the Underworld franchise. And since reboots are turning into a common thing nowadays, my question is this. Where do you think the line must be drawn regarding reboots? Or when does a movie qualify for one? And then Elias continues saying, for me, a reboot for a franchise like Underworld that is so recent and with such a vocal fan base is crossing the line. Many people mention Spider-Man also as an example of this kind of reboot, but for me, this is an example of what not to do. And I think, I'm not quite sure. There's some typos in here, Elias. I'm sorry if I'm not quite getting your question right. And then he finishes saying, hope to hear your thoughts on this. 2 smiley faces. Well, Elias, I agree with you. I think an Underworld reboot seems silly, especially because Kate Beckinsale is still acting and still very capable. One of the best things in the Total Recall remake was Kate Beckinsale because she was really good and she continues to be very good as an action heroine. So I don't understand why they can't just continue it. If they want to introduce some new characters, fine, and just have her come up and be like, I will train you, etc., etc. We all know the drill. So, of course, Hollywood is reboot happy, and also they're franchise happy. They want to get people into the theaters, and they want to have these franchises have longevity. Trilogies, ha! That was the thing of the past. Now, Hollywood wants franchises that last an infinite number of movies. But Underworld, I agree. And so this would be my criteria for whether or not you can have a reboot. I think that a significant amount of time must have passed. And I think even like 5 or 10 years maybe isn't enough. It has to be a lot. All right, so that's 1. We're talking like maybe at least 20 years. 2, most of the cast in the original film is either too old to reprise their roles, unfortunately no longer working for, let's not get too morbid here, for whatever reason, or maybe they don't want to do it. They're like, I'm tired of that. I don't want to play that character anymore. I'm leaving. So that's another reason, if the cast is not viable, the original cast, because otherwise they should come in to some regard. I'm not a fan of rebooting Indiana Jones either, by the way. Harrison Ford, though, I guess at some degree is whether or not he's viable, but that's a whole different discussion. The other thing is that is the franchise been ruined? Is it so horrible at this point that it needs to be rebooted in order to save itself? And of course, I think the most famous example of that is Joel Schumacher's Batman movies. There's no coming back from this. We need to wipe the slate clean. But as Elias pointed out, Underworld still has a very strong connection with its fan base, and the movies do solid business. People like it, and they've done a good job with the world building, and there's no need to fix it. I would guess, though, if they're going to reboot it, they want to make it a much stronger world building, and they want to dig in deeper, because so many other movies like I, Frankenstein, etc., have really kind of piggybacked on the Underworld look that I think it's hard for it to remain distinctive without, you know, Kate Beckinsale. And maybe for all we know, she doesn't want to come back. Who knows? But that's the situation. I agree with you, Elias. I'm not in favor of an Underworld reboot. I think Kate Beckinsale should be allowed to return, unless, of course, as I said again, she doesn't want to. But the rules are, a lot of time has passed, like 20 years. The cast is no longer viable, or for any reason, they don't, you know, by choice or not. And then also, it's embarrassed itself. It's a laughingstock of Hollywood and fandom, and it needs to, you know, be reimagined. So those are my rules. I'm curious to what you guys think. When are you in favor of a reboot? Some of you, I can see from the comment section, are pretty open to reboots under any circumstances, which I think is really interesting. So I'd really like to know why that is, why you're okay with totally changing things up that you liked in the first place. And they could easily continue as they were. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. That's today's morning movie news. I'm heading on vacation. There will be one fresh morning movie news next week, but the rest will be the all-viewer question episodes. So look forward to that, and I hope you all have a wonderful Labor Day weekend if you're here in the United States. Okay, bye.